Well, good morning. I'm about to rebuild or replace the head gasket valve assembly on my Quincy QT5 5-force compressor. I called the company and told them what the symptoms were, which were, as it was approaching 140 psi, I was getting air leakage that sounded like rapid fire gunshots going off. They immediately told me that it was the valve plate that needed to be replaced. So I called the parts department and they sent me out a valve plate assembly kit. It consists of the valve plate, new head bolts, and 3 gaskets, which I'll only be using 2, so I assume that the third one is for different models of compressors or pumps. Okay, so the first step is to open all the valves and make sure all the compressed air has been released, which we're down to 0. My bottom bleed line valve is open. So I'm ready to start. So the first thing I'm going to do is disconnect that fitting right there, that fitting right there, and then on the other side of the head, this fitting right here. And then following that, I'm going to get up on top of the pump and take out the 6 head bolts on the 4 corners and in the center, opposite sides. I'm not going to film this in real time. Right now it's about 7:15 in the morning, and I'll let you know how long it takes me to do this project first time. These are the tools that I used to replace the valve assembly on my Quincy QT5 compressor. And then here, looking down at the top, is the head bolt sequence tightening that you initially tighten down to 55 pounds. Not all at once on each bolt, gradually work up to it using this sequence over and over again. And then once you get it to 55 pounds, all 6 bolts, then you run the compressor for an hour, and then you retorque all 6 bolts to 55 pounds. Connections disconnected, as you can see. Along the back, and the 6 head bolts. Removed. Let's see how easily this disconnects from the... Oh, look at that. That was easy. Okay, I'm not going to be able to do this one-handed, I don't think. Maybe I can. Look at that. Okay. This is my first YouTube video. I'm doing it with a handheld. So I'm going to have to set this down, and I'll meet you back over at the bench after I lift this off. Okay, this is what my valve assembly looks like on the bottom side. Definitely getting a little bit of blow-by on the low pressure piston side. The gasket stayed on top of the pump, so we'll go take a look at that, see what that looks like, see if we can see any evidence of blow-by. There's a little bit of seepage right there. It doesn't look like it got all the way to the outside of the gasket. And the same on the high pressure side, although on second thought, those spots they match up with the recesses in the valve plate, so maybe it's okay. It looks like they used a different gasket material. This is very thin compared to the one that Quincy just sent me, which seems like it's almost 1/8 of an inch thick, and this is paper thin. Okay, let's go look at the top side of the valve plate. We're going to separate it from the pump head. Well, this is definitely showing the same gasket material that Quincy just sent me. And I don't see, first inspection, I don't see any signs of where we may be getting airflow. Although, look at that. That's a piece of one of the valves. It was just sitting loose there. So that's not right, for sure. Okay, the next step is to clean all the old gasket material off. And again, I'm doing this one-handed, so let me do all that, and then we'll get back to you. Okay, so I have the pump head cleaned off, all the old gasket material. And I have selected the 2 gaskets that I'm going to need from the company, that the company sent me. I'm not going to be using this one because it doesn't apply to my pump model. So I'll be using this one. And this one. And it sits right just like that on my new valve plate assembly. There's the old one. So I'm going to take this and invert it. And then take my valve plate assembly and invert it. And then the new gasket for the what becomes the bottom side of this assembly. Sits just like that. So let me go back over to the compressor side, and I'll clean this off. And on further inspection, I did notice that the gasket that I've already placed in place over there on the workbench is the thicker of the two gaskets. It's almost 1/8 of an inch thick, whereas this one is much thinner. It's about 1/16 of an inch thick from the company. And this one that's sitting here that I need to take off now and clean up is about the same size as that one. So this is the correct gasket that was on here. So let me get to that. Let me get cleaning this off, and I'll be back with you. Okay. Well, that's definitely the slowest part of this whole process. Just making sure everything is cleaned off. And so now I'm going to place this bottom head gasket in place. I definitely do have some oil blow through on the low pressure side, the larger of the two pistons. But after talking to the Quincy rep, and for what I'm going to use the compressor for, he said he wouldn't even bother rebuilding that. It'll have plenty of life left. And this is a 2004 unit that I bought from a large company that was using it fairly often every day. But if you do the math and divide it by 50,000 hours that the pump is rated at, there's still years of life left. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come over here and I'm going to grab the valve assembly and bring it over. And align it on top. And I'm going to do the same thing with this gasket. And align it on top of the new valve plate. And again, I'm going to take the pump head assembly and put it on top of all of that, which is hard to do one-handed. Okay, well, you get the idea. Let me put the camera down and align all this stuff back up, and then I'll show you the bolt tightening sequence for the pump head. Okay, we're back. Everything is these 3 connections are tightened back up again. And my head bolts are just a little bit past finger tight. And what I need to do now is to get my torque wrench out and torque them to 55 pounds. And the sequence is, looking at it from the top down, is number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6. And to get them to 55 pounds, don't torque the first one to 55 pounds right away. Gradually build up using that same sequence rotation until you get to 55 pounds. And then you run the compressor for an hour and re-torque to 55 pounds, and you're done. And this whole process, even with holding the camera and being the first time that I've done this, took me a little bit less than half an hour. And I used a total of 2 wrenches, a window scraping tool to clean the gaskets off, and a little bit of chemical to get the final debris off, make everything was nice and smooth and shiny, and we should be in good shape. Thanks for watching.